Hey guys, how's it going? This is Dylan from Pseudo Gaming, and today we have a Magic the Gathering deck tech. I just took this up to a game day tournament. It's a very interesting deck. It's called Crouching Magus Hidden Strings. Now, you might be looking at this deck thinking, okay, this is kind of weird, this is kind of random. You know, you'll see a favorite Hoplite, a Niv Magus Elemental, and a Crowan Skyguard and all this other jazz. You're probably like, is this just a thing where you put a bunch of low mana cost creatures on and just swing? Well, kinda, but it's a little bit different. This deck has been floating around. I know I did not make this deck, AJ Sacher did. I saw it on his Twitch stream and I was like, you know what, I'll try it out. And I guess I'll just review it because I know I've had a few people asking me questions about it, because it's such an intriguing deck. It's a combo deck essentially. It revolves around, you know, triggering heroics or getting heroic triggers and then buffing up the Niv Magus Elemental. Now, to start, we'll go ahead and we'll look over here at these lands. Alright, so first off we have 4 Hallowed Fountains. We have 4 Sacred Foundries. We have 4 Steam Vents. Then right here, depending on how much money you want to spend, there's either going to be 4 Mutavaults or there's just going to be some basic lands. Now you can choose between, because a Mutavault doesn't have a color type, that's just meant to be a body. So if you're wondering why, you know, you can switch, that's why. Is that this actually will probably help your mana more than having Mutavaults there. Mutavaults are just if you want to have, you know, that extra creature, but I didn't really find them necessary. So, and you also might be wondering now, why do you only have 16 lands? Because there's 4 basic lands, 4 Steam Vents, 4 Sacred Foundries, and 4 Hallowed Fountains. Well, the reason for that is because the average converted mana cost of this deck is 1.25. Now that is insanely low. And honestly, if your opening hand has 4 lands in it, you want to throw it back. And if you end up drawing 4 lands just during the game, yeah, that's considered land flooded for this deck. So, to start, we'll go ahead and look down here at this Crowan Crusader. Pretty much what he does, he's a 1/1, you know, 1 red to cast. He's a 1-drop. Whenever you cast a spell that targets a Crowan Crusader, put a 1/1 red Soldier creature token with haste onto the battlefield. Now, that's just a pretty solid heroic. You know, you just want to sit there and just target him just to make 1/1s. You don't really ever swing with him, and I'll tell you why once I get to the other combos with him, because just remember what all these do, and then once I start discussing what the effects do here, you'll see how it all combos out, and I'll do a lot of explaining. This deck is very complicated, and I will say this too, this deck is not for people who just, you know, it's for people who want to really think. There's a lot going on with this deck at all times. So if you just want a deck, you know, where it's just kind of like, you know, play this, play that, win the game, it's fine. But if you want to play a deck that really challenges your mind to where you're trying to get the most possible use out of everything, this deck is probably for you. And I'll tell you guys my overall thoughts about it and how I did it at game day at the end of this. So, then we have 4 Niv Magus Elementals. Now, this card is really interesting. Like, with this deck, you're going to find that you're going to have the judge at your table all the time, because with the way that this works and the way it combos with the other spells that I'm going to show is just very interesting. But again, we'll get to that. But essentially for this, you're just buffing him up, making him a super big boy really fast. Alright, so then we have Judge's Familiar. You know, that's just to help against control. And, you know, like, I guess kill spells, really just anything. You know, it's a 1/1 flyer. You can also put your ciphers onto it to help trigger ciphers to target things like, you know, a Crowan Crusader and Niv Magus Elemental. Alright, so next we have Favorite Hoplite. He's just a 1/2. Whenever you target him, get a +1/+1 counter. Just solid. Alright. Next we have a Crowan Skyguard. Now, right here, it's really all up to your opinion, because I do see people running the Hero of Iroas doing 2 and 2 of this, but I just preferred running 3 of these because I found flying to be more relevant, because you don't really run that many like enchantments in the deck. Okay, so next you have the Ordeal of Perforos. This is just a way to offer spot removal against creature decks. You can deal 3 damage, and I mean, when you have it on this guy, I mean, think about it. It's just gonna +1, +1, +1, so it's really 2 swings and then this thing's blowing up. Alright, so next off we have Springleaf Drum. Now, if you're not familiar with this, it's just a 1-drop. Tap and untap creature you control, add 1 mana of any color to your mana pool. That really helps solidify the mana base. I found myself using that to cast anything I didn't have the color for early game. I found myself using that, like to cast like a Necroan Crusader when I only had blue or something, or if I only had white, something ridiculous like that in the very odd times where I did. Okay, so next off you have Retraction Helix. Until the end of turn, target creature gains return target non-land permanent to its owner's hand. Now, that's not this card. This card really you have to combo it to get it to really work right. But I mean, it's a solid card. It helps against creature decks. I mean, if you're playing against mono blue, this will help you at least delay a Master of Waves or a Night Veil Spectre for at least 1 turn. It helps really just kind of delay things. And then so then we have Bioshift. This is to just say you have this guy super buffed up and you need a way to just transfer all of them over, like this guy or maybe this guy. Well, you can do it for 1 mana, and then it triggers 2, and it will trigger 2 heroics if both creatures are heroic that you're targeting. So then you have Triton Tactics. Now this combos with the Retraction Helix really well because, I mean, think about this. Alright, so your opponent just played, I don't know, like Master of Waves or something, or I don't know, something ridiculous and huge. Okay, and all your creatures are tapped, alright, and he swings at you with this huge creature. Say it's like a 12/12, I don't know, I'm not gonna say Mistcutter because it has Pro Blue, but it's just like a 12/12 something with haste. Something, just anything huge. And imagine the worst possible scenario you can for when fighting a big creature. Then you can untap your creature with Triton Tactics because it'll give them +0/+3 until the end of turn. Untap those creatures. At this turn's next end of combat, tap each creature that was blocked by one of these creatures this turn, and it does not untap during its controller's next untap step. So now you just delayed that big ass 12/12 also, because then you can use this. You can untap with that, and then you tap them, boom, right back to the hand. Just delayed that big old dude. Now, I mean, this deck really, it's a hard deck to play, and I'll tell you why in a little bit. So you have God's Willing. Target creature you control gains protection from the color of your choice. This is just to add like spot protection for Nyx Magus against Banishing Lights, Detention Spheres, any kind of removal. Okay, so then next off we have, I guess these are the 2 big, just huge things. They're ciphers. The first of them is Hidden Strings. Alright, well, what this does is you can tap or untap a target permanent, and then you untap or tap another target permanent, which it's not bad. Think about this. Like, you're on turn 2, you can untap both of your lands. It says permanent, not non-land permanent. So you can untap both your lands to do even more. Like, I was finding that I had my whole hand down by like turn 3, more than 75% of the time. Alright, so, and then also ciphers. So you can just sit here. You can just sit here and just hit this guy and this guy. Just, I don't know, just tap this guy, because you're not really going to want to swing with him. You're just going to want to find a way to trigger his heroic the most. I mean, sometimes that might be swinging, but most of the time it's not. So, even say you had this ciphered to him, right? Alright, so then you swing. Boom. You can untap him, then you can also untap a land to do maybe like a God's Willing if you were out of mana. It's just so next turn you can have some spot removal. I mean, there's a lot of synergy to this deck. Alright, the next thing is Trait Doctoring. Alright, so this is a 1-drop. Change the text of target permanent by replacing all instances of one color word with another, or one basic land type with another till end of turn. It's a cipher. So pretty much if something says like protection from green, you can change that to protection from red. Or if you have an island and you need a mountain, you can actually change that island into a mountain until the end of turn. Pretty damn good, right? That really helps with that. But now, let me explain to you why, like I said before, you're going to have the judge at your table the whole time. It's not really about this guy, or about this guy, or about this guy. It's about this guy. Now, the way this works is really trippy, so just hold on. Just try to understand this. This is kind of confusing to some people. Okay, so it says exile an instant or sorcery spell you control. Put 2 +1/+1 counters on Niv Magus Elemental. Okay, so say you have a trait doctoring ciphered onto him. Okay. So, and then you swung. Alright, you tapped him, whatever, you swing. You hit him, you deal the combat damage, and the cipher goes off. Alright, if you're not familiar with cipher, it's pretty much whenever you deal combat damage, you get to recast the card that was ciphered onto him, and it lasts until this guy leaves the or whoever it was ciphered to leaves the battlefield. Okay, so now say you dealt the damage and it recasts. All right, you now control the spell. So then you can choose to target the Akroan Crusader, right? All right, so then yeah, say you have this guy right next to it. Right? So then you can choose to target the Akroan Crusader, and then that's going to go onto the stack. All right, since you now control both of these spells, you get to choose in which way they resolve. Okay, so you would choose to have the heroic resolve first. So then you would get your 1/1 token. All right, then after that, you're going to want to say, I'm going to activate the exile instant or sorcery spell. So then after that, this will go on the stack, and you can choose to have this resolve before the effect resolves, causing it to where you just triggered a heroic, and you also just buffed up your Niv Magus Elemental, right? Now, that might seem a little trippy, but I promise you it's legal. Like it's legal. I did a lot of talking about this with some judges and stuff, and they confirmed it. You control the stack, and you have to control the spell before you can do this. That's why you have to cast it, and you get to control your stack. You choose what resolves first whenever you control all the spells. So I mean, so Niv Magus Elemental, same goes for hidden strings, any kind of cipher. If you put on here, yeah, it'll do that. Now that's crazy. So that's essentially the deck in a nutshell, though. It's just triggering heroics and all these random little different ways, then hitting sorry about that, then hitting people so you can reactivate this. There was times when I was just, people were just kind of sighing at me from across the table, like, okay, wait, now what's going on? You're going to get a lot of blank stares from across the table with this, because there's a lot to keep track of and there's a lot going on. Okay, so now let's look at the sideboard real quick. Okay, so first off, you have the Artisan of Forms. All right, this will let you copy any big bad boy that is on the field. So if someone has a Ruach Thar, guess what? You have a Ruach Thar too. Or someone has a Colonian Hydra, you have a Colonian Hydra too. Alright? There's just one of those. Next off, you have 2 Ordeals of Heliod. Now, this is to gain life against red aggro decks. That's really essentially it. Just anytime you feel like you need to gain life. Mizium Skin. This is just if you feel like you need more hexproof against any kind of deck that has removal in it. Two Glares of Heresy. Exile target white permanent. Gets rid of Elspeth. Gets rid of a lot of different things. Just anything white, any white permanent, this will get rid of. So that is an answer to Elspeth. Detention Spheres. A mono white deck, Brimaz, Voice of Resurgence. This actually is really good against Voice of Resurgence in particular, because that means Voice of Resurgence doesn't die, so they don't get a token. Next, we have 2 Murder Investigations. Now this is an interesting card because whenever enchanted creature dies, put X/1/1 white soldier tokens onto the battlefield. This is your Supreme Verdict proof card. Alright, you have another one on the sideboard, but I'll get to that in a second. But there's 2 of these, so if someone Supreme Verdicts you, if somebody kills it, you now get, like, say, you have like a big old 8/8 Niv Magus and somebody just Doomblades it. Well, now you have 8/1/1 white soldier tokens. Next off, we have 4 Boros Charms. Now this card is really situational, that's why it's not in the main board. I mean, honestly, I would have it in the main board, but if I was going to play this deck again, this would be going to the main board, but because making things indestructible is amazing against Supreme Verdict. Being able to give something double strike or just straight up deal 4 damage to target player, that is so helpful in more ways than you can believe. It comes in handy in tons of matchups. Alright, so this is Aqueous form. I apologize because it's like Spanish or French or something. I don't know. I don't remember. But what this does is whenever you attack, you get to scry 1, and also it makes your creature unblockable. It's just one blue mana, unblockable. You get to scry whenever you attack. Next off, you got 2 Hands of Binding. This is really good against any kind of creature deck that runs like pretty much green-red aggro, because they run really cheap, efficient creatures like, I don't know, maybe Fanatic Xenagos, Mistcutter Hydra, I mean, you know, Pelucranos. This will lock them down to where they cannot swing at you. So anytime you hit, you can just keep tapping them, and then they'll untap during their controller's next untap step. More Boros Charms. There's 4 Boros Charms in this. That is actually it for the sideboard. Whoa. Now, I guess I'll just tell you about how I did with this deck. Now, the deck it's a really decent deck, but I probably won't be playing this deck again, because it's a good deck. You know, you're gonna find that your first turns are extremely explosive. I was consistently getting, like in every match I played today, I was able to get every single person down to about 5 health in the first 3 turns. Now, but the thing is that I got them down to 5 health. So that doesn't win the game. And once they kill your creatures, you're just kind of done. Even if you sideboard in the Boros Charms and stuff, I found that, you know, unless you draw them, you have to pray that you see one every game, and most of the time it just doesn't happen. Like I had 4 Boros Charms in, didn't see one. Well, actually, never mind. No, I did. I saw one, but by the time I got it, it was way, way too late. I had already been Supreme Verdict. So I pretty much was done. There was nothing I could do to it. Now, but the deck is really interesting. It is a challenge to play. You know, I could have just not been playing it right. There's always that possibility. But I would not recommend this deck for newer players, because this deck is confusing as hell, and you're going to be sitting there thinking a lot on each of your turns. All right, this deck takes some practice to master, as well as it's just, I mean, it's not that it's a bad deck, because I mean, I will say this is that I never went down without a fight. You know, like I always got them down to 5 health. Like, you know, they were always on like the edge of their seats, but I just didn't have this deck. It just doesn't have what it takes to just push it over the top to just end the game. It doesn't end the game, unfortunately. It's very scary, it's very intimidating at first, but once you kill the creatures, like this thing just folds to removal. Even with the Boros Charms, you know, all this stuff, this deck, if it's against removal, you're gonna see the same thing. It's just get them to 25, or get them down to 5 health, and then they're gonna stabilize, kill everything that you have. Either that or drop a Pelucranos, drop something, and then you won't have an answer for it. There's not enough answers to the popular decks right now. Now, this deck could be good, but just right now, it's just not that good. But, I mean, I never went down without a fight. You know, it will always make people think, but I don't think that the deck is ever going to win. Unfortunately, you'll probably, I know, I will say this, though, is that, you know, I didn't lose all the time. You know, I did win. I don't know, I played like, it was a smaller tournament, so there was a smaller game day. The turnout wasn't very good, so there's only 3 rounds in the tournament, but I mean, I lost 2 of the rounds. I only won 1 round, and that was it. And I was like, I lost my first round, I won my second round, then I lost the 3rd round. Now, I know those odds just aren't good enough for me, because I mean, imagine if it would have been like a 6-round tournament or something, then at those odds, winning 1 out of every 3 games, that would have just been kind of a waste of time to play. However, you know, I do like the deck, just at the fact that it's just not, it just goes, it's just not normal. It's just not what you see. It's not a mono blue, it's not like a mono black, it's really its own flavor, and I really feel like with some tweaking, this deck could be good, but as it stands right now with this particular deck list, it's not that good. Now, I probably will edit it and give it 1 more shot, and I'll let you know if it turns out good, but as of now, it's like, it just didn't have the edge that it needed. It just needed just a little bit more to to be able to win the game, but it just didn't have it, and making it have it is going to be quite the challenge without removing any of the synergy that it already has, because a lot goes on with this. But anyway, guys, that's essentially the deck in a nutshell. So, key points. A, this deck is not for new players. If you play this and you're a new player, you might get mad because the deck is confusing as hell. Now, also, you probably will not like two. You probably won't want to play this deck because you're gonna have a judge by your table all the time whenever you have a Nyx Magus down. Thirdly, the deck is really interesting. I like the deck. It's just not quite good enough for competitive Magic. Like, the deck is really interesting. You know, it was really fun to play, even though it was confusing. And I definitely give credit to the guy for coming up with a deck that was, I mean, this efficient. I mean, it was almost there. You know, I'm like getting competitive decks down to 5 health. I mean, look at this. That's like an uncommon. This is just like all like uncommons. I mean, that's a rare, but yeah, I mean, you have the dual lands, but the rest of it, I mean, the deck's just running on freaking like commons and uncommons. Like, that's pretty good to me. It's a pretty good thing. And yeah, but I mean, if you're looking for an interesting deck to play, I mean, sure, try it out. I mean, maybe I was just playing it wrong. That's, like I said, it's always a possibility. But thanks for watching, guys. I hope you like the deck. I'll be uploading more deck text with the decks that I'm playing currently soon. Like, subscribe, rate, and all that. And I will see you guys next time.